Thank you as always to those of you who are supporting the channel on Patreon, including the big patrons of the month, the Nerd Therapist, and Jack the Loudred. Thank you. Hey Pokemon Masters, Toby here. I like doing my Pokemon theories. Sometimes they're just hard to come up with, and other times I make them, but they're just really short. For example, point number 1 of, I guess, 8 today in today's videos, the new Pokemon Dreadnought, which I absolutely love, is definitely a descendant of the Pokemon Tirtuga, which is based off of a snapping turtle, a biting turtle. Dreadnought is a biting tortoise. They are both water and rock type. And if you combine their bodies, you kind of get that proto image that came from Pokemon Gold and Silver, where it was like definitely the origins for Tirtuga. Well, now if you look at the body, you kind of have a mix mash of the two. Definitely more Tirtuga than Dreadnought, but I can see the similarities there. Pokemon theory, given that all Pokemon evolve, evolutionary speaking, we know that we've got an evolutionary tree. Dreadnought must be a descendant. Cool, but we're like less than a minute into the video, and that's the whole theory. And I don't think that's that interesting on its own. Don't get me wrong though, these points of interest to do with Sword and Shield are coming up all the time. We're having these discussions over on Twitter, at Toby, or in the Twitch streams, twitch.tv/BirdkeeperToby. That is also linked in the description. These discussions are happening all the time, and I have like 7 other little bits of interest. It's not really full theories, and sometimes literally just ideas for theories and questions. Things to think about going into the games. I'm also going to address some new Sword and Shield leaks that have come out that are possibly legitimate. I will talk about that at the end. But for now, point number 1 is Professor Magnolia an ex-Aether Foundation member? I don't mean to say that just because she's a scientist and the Aether Foundation people are scientists, but also, is that a Z crystal on her neck? We know that Pokemon likes tying everything together with alchemy and the names of flowers and that kind of thing. I mean, first it was just the tree names of all the professors. Then Pokemon Sun and Moon saw a lot of characters like Lily that had their names based off of flowers. I think there is a Magnolia Lily. I think that's a thing. I'm not sure. And of course, Z crystals were the big mechanic from last generation. They do like tying these things together, like how Zygarde crossed over into Pokemon Sun and Moon. And on top of that, both of the legendary Pokemon, Zacian and Zezamenta, I've definitely said those wrong. And both of these Pokemon are Z-named legendaries, just like Zygarde, and Kalos is in Europe, just like Galar would be, or Gala if I'm pronouncing it wrong. So perhaps it's all going to come together and there'll be a big connection. There is a lot of people who really seem to be into this kind of lore. I'm just asking the question, is she ex-Aether Foundation? Something to think about, something to look into. Something else to look into is that little raven on the end of her staff, her walking stick. I gotta say, to me, if anything, that looks like the pre-evolution for Corviknight. And Corviknight might have another interesting origin. This is something else that appeared on my Twitter. Is it possible that it's inspired by the design mechanics of previous flying animations? We see it in Kalos, we see it in Ruby and Sapphire. A big black bird thing sweeps you up as the generic overworld image. And in this game, Corviknight is being used as a taxi service to fly you around, so it is very much the fly mechanic Pokemon. My personal feelings is no, I don't think it is inspired by that. I think it's just inspired by a raven or a crow, but something to think about. And the little extra thing, speaking of those connections to Kalos and other Nordic things, obviously we've got Celtic runes all over the place, but crows that fly around are very much inspired by Odin's traveling ravens. Odin, one of the Norse gods. You're familiar, you've seen Avengers. Yeah, definitely some shared inspiration there between the worlds of Galar and Kalos. Another little thing, or should I say massive thing, is the Dynamax evolution. Not evolution, I keep on saying evolution. The Dynamax mechanic. Dynamax Pokemon themselves are, of course, very interesting, and I've already made a video about have we seen Dynamax Pokemon before. I'm talking about things like the Dragonite from Bill's Lighthouse, or the Tentacruel that was attacking the sea town with all of its tentacle in the anime. There's an ancient Claydol in the anime. There is, of course, the ancient Gengar and Alakazam and Jigglypuff, I think, of Pokemopolis. Giant Pokemon have appeared a lot before, but most recently, and I kick myself for not mentioning this in the video because I even thought about it at the time, was Torterra from Detective Pikachu. There are giant Torterra in that movies. Could they be Dynamaxing? One of the concept artists joked on Twitter, and they did say it was a joke. RJ Palmer put up a picture of a giant Torterra and said, hey, Rhyme City has Dynamaxing too. A little nod to the idea that maybe Rhyme City is set in the same world as Galar. And that's, of course, one of the other theories to think about. I mentioned this before we actually saw the Galar region map, or before we even saw the Rhyme City map from the movie. And it is, in my opinion, still very possible that the two line up. I'm very 50-50 about it. That London town at the top, I mean, first of all, Rhyme City has a lot of London-like inspirations to it. But also, when you look at the in-lore map in the film, it's kind of... Is there a pen and paper? Gotta do my graphic art. Okay, art here. Rhyme City in the film appears to be 2 little bits of land. There's a small bit of land down here, and then a big bit of land over here where the bulk of Rhyme City is, with a couple bridges connecting to it. Well, there is a river running through the top town in Galar, presumably with some some bridges crossing over it. It's representative, of course, of, I assume, the River Thames, which runs through London. Between that and the Dynamaxing, I don't know. I mean, maybe they look a little bit different. I'm very 50-50. Potentially Rhyme City could be a part of Galar, but maybe that town in the future or in the past. Maybe. Okay, I've got two other little points of interest for you. I didn't mention this before because it wasn't on Cerebi, and so I didn't want to call it as official. But there's a little kind of squirrel-like Pokemon that appears on the jersey of one of the characters that is cheering along in the sidelines. And in fact, if you look really closely, you can maybe see that squirrel-like Pokemon in the stands as well. It's all on Cerebi. This Pokemon was not something I was considering as a Pokemon before, and I will mention it not in the next evolution tree video about this batch of Pokemon, but I'll mention it in the next one. But yeah, it looks like we have another Pokemon on our hands. As to what kind of Pokemon this is, could it be the new Pikachu clone? We've already had a squirrel, so I'm thinking no. But yeah, just a little something of interest. By the way, the guy in the stadium, Milo, the gym leader, he has a number on his jersey. That number is likely indicative of the Pokemon that he uses, probably Gossifleur. Because if you remember Melmetal and Meltan, I think our Melmetal is number 803. So about 830 is a pretty early game Pokemon, Gossifleur. And finally, one more thing, and I saw this on the Twitter of Ruin Maniac Files. I gotta say, by the way, everything that I'm mentioning today, some of it I've thought of myself, some of it is just things that people have been tweeting at me saying, hey, talk about this, isn't this interesting? This is just stuff that I find interesting, and a lot of this stuff can open the gateway to a lot of good Pokemon theories, and that's your job, going out there and Pokemon theorizing. Ruin Maniac Files, though, and Umbreon Libris, in particular. These people's Twitters are the Twitters to follow when news gets announced, because my goodness, they are on the ball, pointing out stuff that I otherwise just wouldn't think about. For example, Ruin Maniac Files points out the relic crown from the Unova region that has the exact same amount of spokes on it as Zacian's crown that it wears on its head. Could those things be related? Maybe. I thought the relic crown was supposed to be indicative of the crown that N wears in the Unova region. Maybe they are all the same. So yeah, there are questions out there in the world of Pokemon yet to be solved. There are small little theories. You know, the Turtles relationship, or is Rhyme City part of Galar? Gala, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong again. I just had a tweet. They said that I pronounced it wrong, and I'm pronouncing everything wrong. It doesn't matter. There are questions out there, and there are curiosities out there, and sometimes there are answers out there already on the internet, come in the form of leaks. There was a leaker. I am not going to link to the leaker, and I am not going to, because in case curiosity gets the better of you, but you can Google, you know. There are some leaks, and someone leaked a whole bunch of stuff, including in their leak, they said that your rival is going to be called Hop. They predicted a whole bunch of stuff about Dynamax transformation. They got a lot of stuff right, and with it, they also guessed at a number of other things. It seems likely that those things aren't guesses, and that person just knows, and they've leaked it out onto the internet. I've been asked to cover this stuff, but I sort of don't want to. And not because I don't believe it might be true, and not because it doesn't excite me, or because of any moral stance in particular I have, although you shouldn't leak stuff. It's always fun to see stuff as Game Freak intends it. I think that's just a much better experience for any video game players, and I think by leaking stuff, you kind of take that away from the players a little bit, so shame. But the reason I'm not going to cover any of the other leaks in with this list, with this channel, is because some of them may well be wrong. There was a leak back when Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out that included Rainbow Rocket, and that is something that turned out to be correct, and there was a bunch of other correct predictions in there as well. They also announced an Alolan Oddish. That never happened. That leaker decided, for whatever reason, to put in an Alolan Oddish, despite the fact that everything else in there was true. Maybe they really thought there was going to be an Alolan Oddish. I don't know. But the point is, those leaks, even if they seem accurate by everything else that has been presented to us, until the games come out, we can't actually know if they were 100% correct. I'm sure many of the things in that leak were correct, and congratulations to that person for just ruining it for a bunch of people who didn't want to see it, where it's going to just stumble on their timeline. But yeah, some of those things just might be wrong. So if you're hearing about the leaks out there, just take them with a pinch of salt. As for the stuff we do know about, the Z Crystal and the Crow and the images of when the fly animations from previous games, and the Dynamax-sized Torterra, and the turtle that is very similar to Tortuga, and the Relic Crown. When it comes to these things, that is where my interest peaks, and I want to talk to you more about that, of course, in the comments. Many more videos to come. I'm really excited to keep on talking about Galar with you, and, Galar. Oh, and just quickly while this is being edited, Zacian, Zamazenta, Eldegoss, and Galar. There you go. Thank you for pointing it out all over my comments and Twitter, you Hermione Grangers.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Of course. So hi, Pokemon Masters.
This is Ash Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a Pokemon Master!